new creatives, new podcasts like this one, and just getting to discuss books, writing, my creative process, other creative processes, as well as how to best connect and help writing and creative communities to better ourselves and the people around us.
So let's talk a little bit about the first book of the series, Child of Tempest. What is the basic plot of that without giving away any spoilers?
Okay. I have been doing this for years, but I always feel I'm like, okay, let me not give up too much. So I'll try to keep it as short and sweet as possible. But Child of Tempest is about a prince named Roderick, and he can control time. And he's the only person on the planet who can, because he is the acolyte of time. And there are 4 acolytes: time, death, space, and life. And he is the time one, and he's also the youngest. So he has to battle other royalty, other family, friends, even sometimes the gods themselves, because he has a lot of internal issues that deal from family trauma, that deal from being the only person who has this great, immense power that he has been carrying since he was born. And you follow his story and learn about his family and their dynamics together, and how they try to be this picture perfect family in public, and behind closed doors, they're not like that at all in any sense.
So there's a lot of realism in this fantasy novel.
Yes.
Does it follow Roderick throughout all 4 books, or does it change characters?
So it mainly follows Roderick and Princess Arcelia's stories, and it kind of flips between each book. So the first book and second book really focus on Roderick and his family, and then the coming books, Lone Star Child and A Sisterhood of Secrets, follows more of Arcelia's family, as well as other side characters' families as well. And I do make it where it all connects, where everyone's families or their dynamics kind of intertwined, and you see how, wait, why did this happen in this book? And then you find out in a future book, like, oh, okay, this is where it connects. So you kind of see how all of these families, even though they have different looks, different dynamics, how they in many ways connect to each other, both on a surface level and more deeper level too.
So how would you describe your protagonist?
Goodness. Roderick is very, he's sassy. He's a sassy, he's very sassy, outspoken, independent, but very soft-hearted as well. And you see how he kind of breaks his shell as he gets older and meets more people, and really tries his best to connect to more people. And you see him mess up, and you see him try his best to fix his mistakes. Again, he's very independent, so he tries to do everything by himself. And you have to see him have to, okay, I guess I have to like ask for help. I guess I have to try my best to tell other people I'm not feeling okay, or I need a helping hand. I can't do this all by myself. Though he, again, is very hot-headed too. So I can do it. I got this on my own. I don't need your help. So you have to see him slowly break down those walls and be more accepting to reaching out to others, and also finding forgiveness, because he, again, is very resentful in many ways for the things that have happened to him, both in the past and present. So you see how he forgives and unforgives people around him quite a bit.
So you mentioned that there's some time, things with time. So what is the setting in this book, in the first book, and is it the same throughout, or do you change settings in each book?
So the books mainly stay in the same time period, which is a modernized time where they have cell phones, and they also have, of course, the use of magic, but the setting itself does change. So Roderick travels around the world. He also travels throughout dimensions and different places and space. So you get to see him kind of hop around and find, that's where, again, he finds other people where he has to learn patience and forgiveness and connection and asking for help because he's in different places and he's not used to it, or he doesn't really know how to best be of use. So he has to lean on other people to help him and guide him, which he does begrudgingly, but he doesn't have a choice.
So since we do travel, time, and space or whatever, what were the different eras and cultures that you found the most interesting, and how did you study for them, or how did you research for them?
So for me, I have a lot of the cultures and relationships and different people are based off of various different indigenous cultures as well as African cultures, because myself, I am African. My parents are both from Cameroon, Africa. So I've always grown up with different stories and folklore. Also, being a military child, my mother was in the military for 20 years. So I traveled a lot. And I've always been a history buff. So I've always been reading and researching about different mythologies and cultures and backgrounds. And I really wanted this series to explore those different, or my love of those different cultures and my love of those different folklores and mythologies. So Roderick and the rest of the crew really you get to see them, how I put my own magical twists on different indigenous cultures from South America, from Africa, from the Middle East, from Asia, and intertwine them together. So yeah.
That makes me really curious to read your books, because I have not yet read them, but I actually put it on my TBR. I put it in the wish list. I have a wish list of ones because I love fantasy. But
Yes.
since I love fantasy and so do you, what is your favorite part of world building as far as when you're writing your book?
I think my favorite part is probably the most boring part is the research. I I always tell everyone I always have at least 100-page PowerPoint somewhere about every book I write because I just love to learn about different cultures and learn about different people. I think the best way to really invest into or get better in fantasy and knowledgeable about fantasy is through its world building. I love learning how different authors and writers, and even myself, we can be so creative and imaginative from the things we research about. So I think that's my favorite part. That's also what draws me to a book. And I think that's what draws a lot of people to my books, because I do really want people to see and feel and smell and even taste what the characters are seeing and feeling and tasting, using all your five senses when you're reading, because I think that really helps delve you better into the world building of the stories and following the characters and their journeys. And I just love it.
It seems like you add a lot of realistic things in your stories. What are some of the magical or mystical elements that you like to incorporate in your world building?
Yes. So biggest one is magic. Even though in this story magic is used and it's prevalent, but I don't highlight as much as I do with the mythology. So I've always been a lover of mythology, whether it be African mythology, Greek mythology, indigenous Mayan mythology. I love it all. So really getting to build out the gods was my favorite part. I love there's four main gods. There's Hephaestus, the god of space. There's Vitae, the god of life. Mors, the god of death. And of course, Tempest, the god of time. And they all have their own personalities and they all have their own plethora of children or demigods that you get to meet and read about too. And I just love making each and every one of them, because they're kind of like, okay, why does this happen? Well, it happens because of this. And then you get into their own folklore and story. And it gave me so much joy getting to really make my own mythology and my own gods and how they work within their world and why things happen the way they happen and how that impacts the characters was, again, just magical to do.
One of the things that I definitely want to tell like my listeners or the people who follow me like on social medias is, okay, so we know a lot, like a lot of us know about the Greek gods, a lot of us know about the Roman gods, but I'm loving this, like learning about African gods. Like that's what makes me like, okay, maybe
Yes.
this needs to be bumped up a little further on my TBR list because I find all of that, you know, folklore very interesting. I have read a lot of the older stuff as well as, you know, the newer stuff as well. So like I'm very interested. But before we start discussing your publishing company, I noticed that your themes are very important and hefty topics. Could you share why you chose to write specifically about destiny, generational trauma, and discrimination?
Right. So I write a lot about these things because not necessarily I've experienced everything. Of course, as a Black woman, I have experienced discrimination, as well as I think every family has some type of trauma tied to it. But I really wanted to connect to others because I'm writing from the character's perspective. So you get to see how they see the world. And I know that not everyone, again, has the same family dynamics. Not everyone has the same um, good relationships with their parents or their siblings or even their friends. And it really was important for me to write about this because I've traveled most of my life and I've got to meet different people from different backgrounds and I've got to hear their stories and how, you know, something I take for granted is something they've never experienced. Like my mom is one of my best friends and I've met people who have gone 20 years without speaking to their parents. And hearing those different stories have really shaped my worldview and just my outlook on life and my outlook on humans and how we interact with each other and seeing, you know, how I always say, you know, there are a lot of people who grow up in the same household, same parents, and still have two different childhoods. And getting to explore that and write about it was very, I think, connected for me because, again, I have a different childhood from all of my friends, and they have different childhoods from me, and even different childhoods from their own siblings. So, getting to really explore those heavier topics, even in the sky, with the uh, umbrella of fantasy on it was something I really wanted to do because I use fantasy a lot as, you know, a way of escaping, but also still bringing you back to reality. So having these topics of family trauma, addiction, discrimination were important for me to showcase, to really have the reader understand the characters and also connect with characters because I've had readers come up to me like, oh, this sounds like my family, or oh, I know someone just like Roderick, or I know someone just like his mom. And oh, we're not even going to get into that one. But so I really wanted to, again, I think my biggest thing for just my writing is always connecting people and seeing people from their different perspectives, whether that be good or bad, but seeing those different perspectives and understanding how they got there because of X, Y, and Z.
I often wonder if people who read have like a higher level of compassion because they get to see so many worldviews that they may not have been able to see had they just lived their life without a book in front of them.
I definitely think so. I think if you can't physically travel, again, the best way to travel is through reading. You get to see different backgrounds, you get to see different cultures, you get to see different perspectives because every writer has their own voice and their own story that only they can tell. And you get to read that and hear it and see how they come up with the things they come up. And I think that is, again, so what's so beautiful about writing in books is that, again, you don't have to physically leave, especially now that we have technology everywhere. You don't have to physically leave your home to really travel and explore and understand other people.
So I wanted to start asking about your publishing and author support company. Could you before I ask any questions, could you just share a little bit about it and the background of why you started it?
So Wins Books LLC started right after I had published Child of Tempest. I got it edited by some friends. I said, okay, it's perfect now. I'm gonna publish it. And then I published it, and then a week went by, 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by, and I was like, okay, so why am I not a New York Times bestseller yet? I thought I thought you just published it, you have a great book, and then everyone buys it, and now you're getting a movie deal. Well, what happened? And ironically, that was the one thing I really didn't research was publishing. I researched all the world building, editing, all that, but actually publishing and what to do before you even publish, the checklist you have to go through, the planning you have to go through. I didn't do any of it. And I was like, oh, maybe I do have to actually put in some work to this. And I think when I first started, I read like, oh, self-published, you can do it yourself, you get all these royalties, yada, 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 boom, do it. So I did it and nothing came from it. And I was like, well, what did I do wrong? So I really started thinking hard about that when I decided Try to Tempest was going to be a series, because how I ended the book, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely writing more. So when I started writing Descendants of Time and Death, I decided, I'm going to do a relaunch for book one, but this time I'm going to do it correctly. I'm going to research. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to, like Rajik, me and Rajik both had that problem about asking for help. So I'm like, I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to talk to people who have been in the industry, who know what they're doing and know how to help people. And that's where I realized that and I think what I think is so beautiful about creative fields and industries, that there are so many people who are willing to help and give guidance. There are so many people who are willing to lend you a hand, who are willing to give you a tip here, or willing to get on a Zoom call with you and just talk to you for an hour about how to publish, about how to edit, about where to get certain people. And when I started to reach out and get information and learn more and understand more, I was able to create better products. I was able to create better books. And when I did the relaunch, I was in a better place, I think, writing wise and confidence wise, that I was like, okay, yeah, I can start this. I can continue this. And a week after I published Descendants of Time and Death, COVID lockdown. I remember it was March 6th is when I published Descendants of Time and Death. And right as I got in my new books, we had to shut down everything. And I was like, this is great. So I had already got winsbooks.blog, because I had read, everyone was like, yeah, you gotta have a blog, you gotta write, keep writing. If you're not writing a new book, you're writing a blog, you gotta do something. So I said, okay. So I was like, well, I'm home, might as well just keep writing on the blog. And I started investing more into that. And then I found out I love that too. And the marketing aspect, I've always did digital marketing, but for more of the graphic design elements and physical copies, so posters, papers, banners, all that. But now I was like, oh, I can do website and I can do social media, and I can help other people who may not understand it. And when it became, I believe, summertime of 2020, I started doing author interviews, because I had learned through doing other author interviews online or editorials that even if I paid for them, they were kind of just the same questions. When did you start writing? Why did you like writing? Where can we find your books? And I was like, well, I want to know more from authors. I want to know how how does their writing connect to their past, their heritage or their culture or themselves? Why do they write the genre they write in, of all the genres? How does this connect to them? Who inspired them to write? Why are they writing? What do they have next? And that's when I started doing author spotlights. And then as that continued, I realized that summer that Wins Books, I was like, I am 100% in with this. I want to create a bigger brand with this. I want to not only just for my books, but for others. And the next year I had even more success with meeting more authors and connecting with more authors. And it got to the point where now a lot of people, I will just have random emails like, hey, I am a new author or I'm a new writer and I was sent to you because I don't know what I'm doing. And I said, okay, how can I help? So that continued into 2022. And by 2020, beginning of 2022, I started getting questions of, okay, I want to publish. Can you publish my book? And I was like, ooh, not yet. I maybe, and I don't know when, I don't know if I can do it yet. And then as the year continued and I started finally doing in-person events and speaking events and going to all these different places, I really decided, okay, I'm going to take the plunge and I want to really dedicate more time to Wins Books and supporting authors because I love community. I love helping, and I love helping people who may not know how to do things. And if I can give a little guidance, I'm happy to do that. And I also, one thing that everyone was always like, okay, you do great interviews or you do great spotlights and book spotlights. You should start having people, charge people for it. And I came from the, and I still to this day, I don't charge because that was my perspective is there are things that you can buy from Wins Books that I definitely charge for. But there are also things that I know when you're a new author or you're a new writer, you just may not have, the money to invest. And I wanted to keep something where writers can still, get something out there, get something on a website that's credible, that has a lot of traction, and it also have care put into it. It also has thought put into it. It's not just, okay, fill out this form, we'll contact you in 3 weeks if you're good. I wanted something that was very much, this is your starting point, and if you want to continue with us, these are the ways you can do that. But I wanted something that it was accessible for everybody and able for everybody to connect and grow their own brands. And I've seen it happen where I've had other people come back to me and be like, hey, you did a spotlight for me and I want you in my magazine. Or, hey, you did this for me. I want you to come out of state and do a book fair with me. So I think that is the core essence of Wins Books, is how, again, we can all help each other and connect each other, because I don't know all the answers, but you may know something and someone else may know something and someone else may know something. And if we can all pull together our resources and our connections and our knowledge to better each other in our own writing ventures, creative ventures, I think that is amazing and so beautiful. And that's really what Wins Book stands for, and what I just continue to strive for is just that connective community of creatives that love to help each other, support each other, and grow each other.
I love that so much. And that's kind of what my vision for Authors Alcove has been as well. But as far as what publishing services do you provide for your authors?
Officially in it is 2024. I keep thinking it's 2023. In April of this year, we will be providing all services. So everything from editing, PR, marketing, website design, book cover design, interviews, of course. So we'll do it all. And we will be providing that in April officially, but we are taking manuscripts for anyone who's interested in publishing with us. And you can be a new author, you can be a already published author, you can be a writer who doesn't know what they're doing, it just wants, someone to walk them through the process. We're happy to do that. And later in the future, we will be doing more writing workshops. We do them now. They are smaller, more private workshops at the moment, but we do plan to do more subscription-based workshops, again, about how to publish, where to publish, what types of publishing venues are there out there, distribution, how does that work? So we do plan to do that in the future, but definitely we do everything right now in-house to, again, help the author. And I always say, if I may not be able to provide you all the resources, I'm happy to share other people who might be able to help you better. Again, it's not a one-woman race. I truly believe in connecting and helping others. So not everyone's going to be a fit for Wins Books, and that's okay, because there are tons and tons of publishers out there that might be better for you and better for your vision. So however we can help you get your story out there, we're willing to do that.
Thank you so much. And I do want to ask, before we go, one more question. It's the question I ask everybody. It is, what is one piece of advice you would give to a not yet published author?
Oh my God, this is probably going to be like the longest answer. One piece of advice, my first would be always, always, always ask for help. I don't care if you're asking how much something is. I don't care if it's about, okay, what is an editor? How many I use? Ask for help. If you need to ask about everything from where you need to write your work, where you need to publish it, where you need to store it, if you need to get a journal or a planner, ask. There are so many people who are willing to help. There are so many people who are open to just, again, sitting down and chatting with you and helping you through the process. Because again, for me, I don't think you can have too many books. I don't think there is one person who can have, oh, you have 1,000 books. That's great. I got 3,000. Like, there is no limit to how many books a person can have. So I don't believe there should be this big push on competition or this book is better than this book, or this. No, everyone, every voice, every story has its own place, its own audience. And again, we're in the space of helping people reach those audiences and helping them be able to voice their stories. And I think one way of doing that is that you got to speak up and say, hey, I need help voicing my story because I don't know where to start. And again, there's so many people, so many different communities on almost every app, in person, online, out of country, out of state, that are willing to help and connect you and just give you advice. I have so many great mentors and people within the writing community and outside of the writing community that are always open to answering all of my silly questions, all of my serious or unserious questions too. And again, you see how when you are able to provide help, that others are also able to provide help to you. And it's just this continuous cycle of, again, community and helping each other and supporting each other and uplifting each other. And that can only happen if you ask. And once you do, then you can reach for the stars. And then another piece of advice is patience. I'm still learning that one myself, but definitely patience. I think I am more patient than I was in 2019. Like I said, I really wrote the book, got it edited by a few friends and said, okay, it's perfect. I paid, I think maybe $100 for my book cover and said, it's done, published. And then nothing happened. And I was like, well, why didn't everything happen? And so again, learning patience. I did go and, like I said, when I did the relaunch, I did relaunch the book cover. So the book covers you see now is not the one I paid $100 for. So please don't.
It's
do
beautiful.
not think.
I love your covers now. They're beautiful.
Thank you. Yes. But yeah, those ones are not the one I paid. I don't want anyone to look at them in future and be like, oh, she paid only her. No. that would have been a steal. But no. I did not. I paid good money for those covers. So, but yeah, patience is key. Patience is key. And knowing that everyone's writing and book journey is different. Some people, they are still working on their first manuscript and they've been working on it for 10 years. There are people who take 20 years to publish, and and it is okay. And it is okay. I promise. It's great. And you know, even though, again, I say patience is key, don't be afraid to get it out there. Don't be afraid, again, back to asking questions. And, when you are finally ready to take your book baby and give it to someone to look over it and get either a traditional publisher or a hybrid, or even doing it, publishing yourself, know that, again, things will now take time again. Take your time. There is no rush, but go at your own pace and know that when it is time for you to publish your book, it will be published and you're going to love it. And everyone's going to love it. And you're going to find your audience who's going to love it, and your core readers. And that is the best advice I could give anyone, is just asking for help and, being patient with the process, because we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen next week. As much as I wish I had future vision like Project, we don't know what's going to happen. So being patient with yourself and your journey, I think, is the biggest thing. And yeah, just asking for help. Don't do a Winnie and write a book and publish it and think, that's all you need to do to be a world renowned author. Also, again, marketing too is always going to be your biggest thing, no matter who or how you publish. Marketing, you invest in your marketing plan, invest in who markets with you, because whether or not you're an introvert, extrovert, ambivert, all of them, all the verts, you're going to need to market your book. And it doesn't matter if you are published by one of the biggest publishing companies or you're published by an indie author, or excuse me, an indie publisher. You're going to have to market your book. So marketing, patience, and asking for help. Those are my 3 advice tips for everybody.
Thank you so much. Those are